Okay, so this is another T-Berry Stalker 101. I had just installed a Channel King board in one of these, and this was the next one, the worst condition of the two. This one, the bezel's in worse shape. I haven't done any cleaning at all on this, and you can see how pitted up and grungy and gray. The inside's nice. I mean, it's still nasty, dirty. I've already vacuumed out about a half-pound of dust and dirt out of this thing. You couldn't even see the circuit board before I started. But as a title of this, I wasn't going to. I had decided, nah, I'm not going to do a video on this. Just another Stalker 101. I just did one. Because this one's not getting the Channel King, nothing special. But I got into the cleaning, and I went to push the switch. Actually, I didn't even get a chance to push the switches, because I noticed all three of the buttons on this, okay, were pushed in. And when I pushed them, nothing happened. And pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and yeah, they were just stuck. So took the knobs off the faceplate, which you're going to have to take off anyhow to clean in behind here, get all the dirt and dust out of it, and get all this, basically what smells like cow manure dust out of it. And these, they were just, it's because they're so dirty. There was so much dirt packed in these switches, they just would not push. Now these two I got freed up a little bit. But I got them freed up enough that I could dismantle them like I did this third switch. So you notice there was no white plunger sticking out of that one. That's because everything's sitting over here. And I want to show, if you have switches like this, as long as there's nothing actually broken, sometimes you can actually repair these. Because that's what happened. Dirt just gets inside of them. It gets down in the little trackway down in here, gets pushed, and then, as it works its way in, every time you push the button, you're pushing the dirt into the switch. And once it builds up in there, what happened, just like happened to this radio, they're stuck. You'll push them one day, and that's the last time they ever come out. So, deoxit is your friend, spray, spray, spray. But the trick to actually, because you can disassemble these, as you can see, and there's not like there's a gazillion parts in here that are going to go flying everywhere. The contacts, luckily, on these, as you can see, they are attached to the plunger. And you can see they're, shaking that thing. They're not falling out. So they stay in there. So big bonus there. You don't have to worry about parts flying all over the place. They're actually very simple to take apart. So you'll see the way these work. I'm trying to figure out what would be the best way to describe it. So you've got a spring here. Okay, this gets compressed. Okay, and I'm going to pull this back off. But this spring will actually ride over top of this little metal lever, where did my tweezers? This little metal lever here. And this is actually the problem with this switch. Apparently it was stuck and somebody got pissed off at it and pushed on it really hard and actually bent this. So this is why this one just will not work, which I'll just straighten this out. But again, it can be fixed. But this, okay, little bent piece, and it's bent in a very, darn it, just lay it in my hand, bent in a very specific design, okay, but this part here and this part here should be perfectly parallel. You can see how that one's straight, this one bows down. That's the problem. Somebody just really jammed it in trying to get the switch unstuck, I guess, and they actually bent that one down a little bit, but it's actually very easy to remove. All you have to do is pull out. So you just kind of push in, hold a little tension on the switch, pull out on the spring. Now this is tricky, don't get me wrong. I ain't going to say this is a super simple. Now it's a lot easier, of course, if you take the entire switchboard and everything out of the radio. But that's it. That's all you got to do to take it apart. The contacts inside the switch cannot fall out. The terminals that actually stick out the top side or bottom, depending what direction you have the radio and you're looking at it, they're permanently in there. They just cannot fall out. Like I say, the contacts, again, cannot fall out. So anyhow, all you have to do to put this, and I'll never be able to do this on camera because I literally got to get my face or my eyes like 6 inches away from this thing. But all you have to do now is, once you've cleaned, take your deoxit, stick it in the holes, spray it, get all that dirt and grime out of there. Take something like a paintbrush or, flux brush. Brush off all the dirt. Make sure you clean this area right here out really, really well, okay? Because that's where this part of this little lever rides, and that's the whole key to how these locking or latching switches work. There's actually, let's see if I can show this. I'll slide my pick down in here, but you'll see it come up. But you see how there's little ramps in there. It actually comes up and it goes back up here and down and up and down and up and down. And those are what the ratchets do. It goes click, 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 click. It's actually that little lever is going over here. It drops down. I can't push it back to the left. There's a little ledge there. So it drops down here, comes to here, goes up. Again, once it gets to this point, it drops over a ledge, comes up, again, drops down over a ledge. It's just 4 little ramps in there. So you want to make sure you get that area cleaned out really well. If you have it, I find works really well, the Deox Fader Lube, because it is a lubricant, and this is mechanical, so I add a little bit. That's what all that residue is right there. I actually put a little bit of Deoxit Fader Lube on here before I put it back together, and that lubricates it up. But yeah, it's just that simple. Like I say, the trickiest part is getting this piece back in there. So don't do this if you're easily agitated. You're going to need to be patient. It's very tricky, but it goes in with this little hump, okay? And this little hump right here, that little drop down, that's actually what the spring is doing. The spring actually sits right here, like the back 2 windings of the spring there. When you compress that spring, they actually ride up over top of here. And you'll see this little thing when you're pushed. If you ever watch one of these switches, when you push it, you'll see this thing going up and down as it goes over those little humps in the lever, like I just or in the plunger I just showed you there. But yeah, so all you got to do, pull the spring out. I just usually hold it with my fingernail. Again, that's why I keep my fingernails. They make great tools. But take your tweezers. I'll slide that little piece up in there, then you get it twisted around, and you got to get it lined up with the hole in the front and the hole in the back. Drop it in there. Let go of the spring, that'll retain it, and it'll be back together. So all I need to do now is make this little ratchet lever, I guess you could call it, that's bent, needs to be put back to look like that one. Like I say, you can see how, just out of camera view, you can see how this one, it's bent this way. And that's the whole problem. Like I say, it was mainly dirt with these two. Once I got them pulled apart, got the dirt cleaned out, put it back together, yeah, they work like new. But yeah, the reason this one's not working at all is, if I manually move the lever back and forth through this little raceway here, it'll work. But it doesn't do it automatically like that. I have to force it. And that's why. Because that's fairly tight tolerances they have inside of that little raceway there. If that thing's bent, there's no way that it's going to do what it's supposed to do and follow around that little raceway. So there you go. There's just a really quick tip on taking these plunger-style latching switches apart. And like I say, a lot of times it's just clean the dirt out of them. And if this little lever has gotten bent, just straighten it out. Because a lot of times this is your only choice. A switch like this, you may not be able to find a replacement, especially you're working on something like this. You get equipment that's 30, 40 years old, short of pulling one out of a parts chassis or finding, the Mission Impossible to find parts depot somewhere that has one. Oh yeah, we got them 3 floors down and underground stashed away. We didn't think anybody would ever need them, but yeah, short of finding something like that, a lot of times it's easier. Just take it apart, clean it. Like I say, patience. This I can't overstate. This is really tricky. Getting this little critter back in here. I've already had both of these apart, put them back together. I just took that one apart again, so I got to get this little lever in there. But it can be done. Just be patient, people. Just breathe, and have fun.